Welcome to The Needle, your Division I college basketball podcast. I'm Jack Williams, owner and operator of D1CoachCorner.com, your source for college basketball news, rankings, and predictions. On this podcast, we will present to you weekly conversations on D1 college basketball coaches and their teams. Don't forget to go right now on your computer, phone, or tablet and follow us on Twitter. This episode of The Needle is brought to you by D1CoachCorner.com, your source for Division I college basketball coaching.
Thank you once again for tuning to our 25th episode of The Needle. Again, my name is Jack Williams, owner and operator of D1CoachCorner.com, your source for college basketball news, rankings, and predictions. D1 Coach Corner is the number one source for college basketball preseason predictions and college basketball coach evaluations. The Needle College Basketball Podcast will bring to you 52 weeks of college basketball talk on topics dealing with Division I college basketball coaches and their teams. In this episode of The Needle, we'll be discussing the 2018 rookie head coaches and see how they did in their first season with the team. And then we will get into some college basketball news, college basketball tidbits, and then our new coach impact segment, which will highlight coaches who have recently taken over a team and has positively impacted that team as a result of him being there. If you like our show, go subscribe to our iTunes and YouTube channels. Let us continue to be your number one source for preseason college basketball predictions and college basketball coach evaluations. There were several coaches that were hired as new head coaches in Division I college basketball for the first time ever. Most of them were assistant coaches at one point or another, or has simply coached on another level of college basketball, which includes high school, Division II, or Division III levels. Among some of these new coaches were Penny Hardaway of Memphis, Darian Devries from Drake, Michael Fly of Florida Gulf Coast, Chris Ogden from UT Arlington, David Koch from Rhode Island, Justin Lee Hudson from Fresno State, Texas Andrew Steele of Xavier, Jeremy Balor of Florida International, David Patrick, UC Riverside, A.W. Hamilton, Eastern Kentucky, Ashley Howard, LaSalle, Austin Clunch, Nicholas State, Penny Collins, Texas State, Carson Cunningham, Incarnate Word, Dusty May from Florida Atlantic, Griff Aldrich of Longwood, Jerry Grasso of Bryant, Mark Prosser, Western Carolina, Mike Morrow of North Carolina Asheville, Ron Sanchez of Charlotte, Shaheen Holloway of Eastern Washington, Tavares Hardy of Loyola MD, Walter McCarthy of Evansville, and Tony Pajot of North Alabama. Now, let us focus on those who are actually doing well in this class. And who are they? The ones who are doing well are Penny Hardaway of Memphis, Darian DeVries of Drake, Michael Fly of Florida Gulf Coast, Chris Ogden of Utah Arlington, David Cox of Rhode Island, Justin Hudson of Fresno State, Tavares Steele of Xavier, and Jeremy Ballard of Florida International. Now, starting with Penny Hardaway, hands down, no one was more successful out of this group than Penny Hardaway. His name is one of the most talked about amongst the recruiting circuit. According to 247sports.com, Memphis has the number one recruit class in the nation. Because of Coach Hardaway, Memphis is now part of the national talk circuit. The team's strength is up there with the likings of Kentucky and Duke. Penny Hardaway is for real. However, we have to see what he does with this team that he has. Like I said in the previous episode, building such a big class could be both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because a class as such puts the team in a national spotlight. It could be a curse because if he doesn't produce with this team, he could be fired halfway through his term. A second round finish in the NCAA tournament or less could be considered a failure. But if this team finishes in the Sweet 16 or beyond, Coach Hardaway could be up there for the Coach of the Year in 2019 and 2020. And if he's successful at sending several of his players to the NBA, that will definitely attract more 5-star recruits in the near future. Memphis finished in the second round of the NIT in 2019. This is a good roster for Coach Hardaway. He should have point guard Tyrus Harris returning from the 2018-2019 season. Harris played in 39 games and started in 15, and Isaiah Maurice, who played in 36 games and started in 9 last season. Coach Hardaway has also added a very good graduate transfer to his roster in Rayon Tucker, who was the top scorer on his Little Rock team last season. While in Little Rock, he averaged 20.3 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 1.8 assists per game in his final season. With its top freshman coming in, this Memphis team is loaded. Now, the second one is Darian Devries of Drake. Coach Darian Devries is another coach out of this class that I've discussed several times throughout the year. I love the way this guy recruits. He's bringing in quality transfers just like Chris Beard did in Little Rock, and the group of transfers are a mixture of JUCO transfers, regular Division I transfers, and graduate transfers, while at the same time adding quality freshmen to help stay old and competitive. I really like this coach, and I think that he's going to go far in this league. Drake shared the Missouri Valley Conference regular season title with Loyola Chicago last season. Coach DeVries and Drake would have won them both had it not been for the injury of guard Nick Norton. The one good thing about Coach Darian DeVries is that he didn't inherit a good team like some new head coaches have done. He built this team from scratch. Just thought I'd point that out. The third one is Michael Fly of Florida Gulf Coast. Coach Michael Fly did pretty well with the team that he had. He had lost a lot of players from the 2017-2018 season. Florida Gulf Coast finished the season with an overall losing record of 14-18, but the team had a winning conference record of 9-7, which finished fourth in the ASUN. This is the second in 6 years where Florida Gulf Coast finished below second place. Can Michael Fly get this team back above second place this season? We shall see. Coach Fly and his Florida Gulf Coast team has a pretty tough pre-conference schedule in 2019-2020, which includes games against two teams with up-and-coming coaches from this class, Dusty May of Florida Atlantic and Jeremy Balor of Florida International. Both of these teams played very well last season and should be even better this coming season. Next, we have Chris Ogden of Utah Arlington. Utah Arlington returns to the top of the Sun Belt with Chris Ogden in charge. In 2017-2018, UT Arlington finished in fourth place in the Sun Belt. But in 2018-2019, the team finished in second place. Coach Ogden was also named the Sun Belt Coach of the Year in 2019. Coach Ogden calmed the tensions that were surrounded around UT Arlington due to the unexpected firing of Utah Arlington's winningest coach in history, Scott Cross, who's back in the Sun Belt, by the way. He is the new coach at Troy. Chris Ogden did a wonderful job managing those fears and putting Utah Arlington back on the top of the Sun Belt. Utah Arlington should continue this upward trend in 2019-2020 with the return of two of their top three scorers, Brian Warren and David Azor. The team has lost guard Edric Dennis to TCU, but will be all right with Arkansas transfer Jordan Phillips, a three-star who never got a chance to prove himself at Arkansas due to injury. Next on our list is David Cox of Rhode Island. Despite the fact that Rhode Island finished in 8th place in the Atlantic 10, this team did pretty good this season under new coach David Cox. Rhode Island has a winning overall record of 18-15 and an Atlantic 10 record of 9-9. Not bad. That's something to build on. Next, we have Justin Lee Hudson of Fresno State. Fresno State improved from the previous year under coach Justin Hudson. The team finished in 5th place in the Mountain West in 2017-2018, and in 2018-2019, that record improved to 3rd place in the Mountain West. Coach Hudson may have problems next season, however, after the loss of Deshaun Taylor and Braxton Huggins, the two top scorers on the team. Coach Travis Steele of Xavier was also pretty good last year. It's hard to replace a coach like Chris Mack, but Coach Steele did a great job holding his own. He at least kept Xavier competitive in the Big East. Xavier didn't make it to the NCAA tournament, but they did make it to the NIT. Xavier finished 6th in the Big East last season, but ended the season with a winning overall record. Xavier should do much better in 2019-2020 with the return of his top three scorers, Najee Marshall, Paul Scruggs and Tyreek Jones. They will be joined by a very good recruiting class coming in for the year of 2019. We expect Xavier to be very competitive this coming season. And finally, Jerry Ballard of Florida International. Coach Ballard is doing a wonderful job at Florida International. This team was not competitive for several years compared to Jeremy Ballard taking over. They had only one win season in 19 years prior to this season. This is the first 20-win season since 1997 when the team was being coached by Coach Marcus Rodriguez. If Coach Ballard could get this team back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 1995, his stock could increase greatly. And so much for that. And now let's look into a little coaching news for this week. On May 21st, 2019, Coach Penny Hardaway announced that assistant coach Sam Mitchell has decided to go another direction and will be leaving the team. Coach Jerry Stackhouse announced that Vanderbilt has added Coach Faraghi Fye to his staff on Tuesday. Fye is the former head coach at Whitehaven High School in Memphis. Seems like everyone is targeting Memphis recruit these days. On May 22, 2019, Michigan hires former player and NBA player Juwan Howard to serve as new head coach of the team. First-time Division I head coach and Michigan agreed to a 5-year deal. On May 23, 2019, UCLA hires former Nebraska assistant coach Michael Lewis as an assistant basketball coach. Coach Lewis brings several years of coaching experience to the Bruins. Coach Ricardo Patton was hired on May 23, 2019 to serve as senior advisor to Coach Jerry Stackhouse. I've never heard of such a position in college basketball. Iowa hired Billy Taylor as assistant coach. Taylor has 18 years of collegiate coaching experience, which include head coaching at Ball State, Lehigh, and Belmont Abbey, according to the press release. And now for my little college basketball tidbits. Coach Mike Bray spoke out on Wednesday, stating that transfers need to have a deterrent to keep them from transferring. He stated that requiring transfers to sit out a season will actually save a student from himself. I agree. If we are using sports as a training tool for real life, we have to teach our young men that you can't just do what you want. Everything has rules. A law enforcement officer can't transfer to another law enforcement agency just because he hates his sergeant. The consequences is that he or she may have to retest in order to become a new officer at another agency if they want to leave, meaning that he takes a pay cut and he gets to sit out a year before he is actually able to enforce the law again. The reason for this is because taxpayers have spent thousands of dollars getting him trained so that he or she could serve the city or state that he resides. No one wants to invest all of that money getting you there just so you can broom when you get mad. Allowing a young man to make those type of decisions on the fly is dangerous to the game. Teams are going to be forever changing over players. The product, which is the game of basketball, is going to become diluted. No one is going to want to watch it again. Don't change the rules making it easy for a player to transfer and play immediately. Why fix what is not broken? Now, I do believe that there should be better ways to accommodate the players monetarily, but this one rule doesn't need to be changed, and I agree that graduate transfers should be immediately eligible to play because they have earned their stripes and should not have to wait. Now for our next topic, Michigan hires Juwan Howard as their new coach. Now, I know I've been hard on good to great basketball coaches turned Division I college basketball coaches in the past, or currently. Hell, but I was just citing the facts. There hasn't been not one good to great NBA basketball coach who has successfully transitioned to Division I college basketball coaching. Now, Penny Hardaway, out of all of them, has the chance to change that narrative this season. His name rings around the college basketball circuit like that of Coach K and John Calipari right now, and his teams are starting to reflect that. He has the #1 recruiting class in the nation, but let's not give him Coach of the Year quite yet until we see what he does with this team. But there are several good to great NBA players coaching in the league currently. You have Dan Marley, Penny Hardaway, Terry Porter, Aaron McKee, Patrick Ewing, Jerry Stackhouse, and now Juwan Howard. Avery Johnson and Chris Mullen are no longer with their teams. Coach Dan Marley isn't doing that bad at Grand Canyon. He hasn't yet had a losing season and has led them to the postseason 5 out of 6 years he's been with the team. and Penny Hardaway is still en route to beating the odds. The verdict is still out though. But Penny Hardaway built a brand as a coach before even starting as head coach of a Division I team. He's different. He created Team Penny, an AAU team that hosts a lot of top high school players around the country. He also coached on the high school level where he was able to develop relationships on that level. But still, recruiting is 70% of the battle. Now we have to see what he does with the team that he has, and the verdict is still out on him. But with all of that said, the success rate of a good to great NBA player turned head coach is still relatively low. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Michigan. Now on to our new coach impact. In this new coach impact segment, we will be discussing head coaches who have been head coaches of a particular basketball team for no more than 5 years and who are on an upward trend towards taking that team to another level. This week's new coach impact highlights Coach Chris Ogden of UT Arlington. Coach Ogden took over the team after the firing of Coach Scott Cross. At first, everyone was skeptical about the move, but it turned out to be a pretty good one. UT Arlington's standings in the Sun Belt had improved under the leadership of Coach Ogden from the previous season. Coach Ogden was also named the Sun Belt Coach of the Year last season. Expect UT Arlington to improve greatly next season. That concludes our show for this week. Join us next week at the same time and channel for new episodes. We'll be happy to take on your questions and comments on Twitter for our next episode. Our Twitter handle is at D1 Coach Corner. That is at D1 Coach Corner. See you next week.
Wow.